What is a good cap rate for real estate? I'm going to show you here where most people lie in terms of investment property and what's a good cap rate for you to be looking for in terms of buying or in terms of making offers, so you don't pay too much and you know what a deal is. I'm going to show you the formula. We're also going to discuss how to use that formula to determine value. And we're going to give you some alternatives to compare to that formula so you could quickly evaluate if a property makes sense or not. So one of the things you'll learn real quick is that cap rates are correlated to risk. The riskier the property, the higher the cap rate, the lower the value. The more stable and less risky the property or investment, the lower the cap rate and the higher the price. Cap rates and prices move and correlate with one another. So a 4 cap or a low cap is going to have a higher price, and that may be a nicer building, an A-class building, something newer, more stable, or a building in a rougher area, maybe like an 8 or a 9 cap, and have a lower price because there's a lot of issues with the property and it's going to have higher costs in terms of taking care of it, but most importantly, it's going to have higher risk. So investors look for what is the most risk, what's the least risk, and they use cap rates to help determine that. So I've bought properties that were like a 12 and 13 cap, which is really high, but had a lot of problems. And then I've bought other properties that were like a 5.5 or 6 cap that were pretty stable, pretty normal. All my job was to improve the property as best I could and try to get the value up by slowly raising the rents, increasing laundry income or putting some laundry in if there isn't any, charging for parking, or other ways to increase income like charging for water and sewer and trash through what's called RUBS, Residential Utility Billing Services, to increase the revenue. As you increase the revenue on a property and you keep the expenses in line, you increase value. And as you increase value, if the cap rate stays about the same, what happens is that you build your equity, you're able to borrow money out of the property, and you're able to have some flexibility in terms of what you could do with the property and building your wealth. So the rule of thumb for a good cap rate, in my view, is greater than 5%, and I'm mostly speaking of multifamily. If you can get a cap rate of 5% or higher in a good area that's stable as a property, that's usually a pretty good cap rate. In a hot market like we are right now, I've seen cap rates as low as 3 and 3.5. And the reason why is because where are people going to put their capital to get 3% return, or 4% return? It's tough, right? You go to the bank, you're going to get less than 1%. This is why so many people have gotten wealthy investing in real estate. And it's the number one way that people have built wealth, is because you've got tax laws that support real estate investment, because as a matter of public policy, we want people housed. Somebody needs to run that housing, and those are people that own real estate. In addition, you have businesses and all these other real estate types, which we talked about in other videos, that generate commerce, taxes, income, and provide services for people. So when we look at cap rate and which one you should invest in, I'm going to focus mostly here on multifamily. In multifamily, I say that the lowest you want to go is 5. Right now, most of the places are around 6 to 7%. I'd say 6 to 6.5 is probably where most of them fall. In terms of figuring out the cap rate, we talked about that on another video, but it's important that you understand that you get all the expenses, okay? All the expenses need to be in there, all of them, except the mortgage payment. That is not included. So all the expenses from the property need to be in there, and you need to figure out when you buy the property and the taxes are going to go up, right? Property taxes, because maybe they bought it for $1 million, you buy it for $2 million. Your property taxes are going to go up. Figure that out in the expenses and make sure you have management in there, water, sewer, trash, maintenance, repair, and all those other things. So when you look at a property and you look at the expenses, you're going to be able to take the expenses, all right? You take the expenses and you divide that by the value, and that equals the cap rate, okay? I did this on another video, but essentially you want this to fall somewhere between 6 to 7% on most stable and pretty good condition properties. And those could be properties that, built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and properties that are built newer, like 2000, 2010, 2015, you're going to see cap rates typically in the 4 to 5%, okay? Most of you who are watching this video are not buying those properties. And that's okay, because if you get to that point, God bless you, because I hope you do, all right? But for most people, this is where you want to be at a cap rate. This is a safe expense, or a safe place to be in terms of value. Now, there's one thing that's going to help you and keep you out of trouble, and that is your lender. When you go to buy a property, your lender is going to figure out the cap rate. And if you make a mistake, the appraiser and the lender are going to catch it. Because if they lend on this property, they're investing in the property with you, right? So they want to make sure that you have enough cash flow in that property and enough debt service coverage to be able to pay the property expenses, pay the bank, and have enough extra cash to be able to, have reserves and run the operation. One of the other things that you can use besides the cap rate to figure out value relatively quickly and compare and contrast, I'm going to show you right after you subscribe. Please subscribe so that I could show you step by step how you can quickly evaluate a property in seconds in terms of its value, how I do it, and how a lot of investors do it. So please subscribe so I can help you to build your wealth and understand your real estate investing. So besides cap rate, another way to quickly evaluate the property is to look at the gross income. So if I have a property that brings in, let's say, $80,000 a month in gross income, I can multiply that times 10 and say that property's worth about $800,000. So gross rent multiplier is what this is called. And you could compare that to say, does this property make any sense to buy or not? If you got a property that's 13, 14, 15, 16 times gross, all right, it's probably overpriced unless the income and the rents are substantially lower than they could be or should be. Now, depending on if you're in a rent-controlled environment or not, you may be able to bring those rents to market over time, and that's what we call a value-add deal. So you may pay 13, 14, 15, 16 times gross if the rents are 60% of what market is or significantly lower to capture the asset and manage it properly. I can't tell you how many times I have met people that have owned a property their whole life and never kept the rents to market. And then when they're going to sell it, they want like every single dollar they can get. And I think to myself, how did you lose all this money for all these years? And now you're like worried about an extra 20 or 30,000. You've already lost 200 or 300,000 in low rents and probably another 100 or 200 in value because of your lousy management and failure to keep your rents up to speed. But what happens with some of these people is they've had the property so long, they don't want anybody to move out because they don't want to have to spend money to fix anything. So they just leave people there. They don't hardly ever raise rents. They don't keep rents up to market. They don't do a lot to fix the property because they just don't want to deal with it. Well, as a real estate investor, it's your obligation to make sure that your property is up to speed, that it's in good condition, and to bring your property up to market so that you can maximize your value and refinance and get your cash back from your increase in value. So if I bought this property for $800,000 and I bought it at 10 times gross, okay, and I got this $80,000 up to say 110 over the course of say a couple years, well, now if we do 10 times gross, we're at 1,100,000, right? So now if I go to the bank and I say I want to get 70% of the value of the property, well, 70% of this, $7,700. That's how much of a loan I could get on this property now, right? So besides cap rates and the gross rent multiplier, it's important that you raise your rents and keep your rents to market or close to it so that you can eventually get your cash out. Now, I've done this several times with properties, and the key to getting your cash out is getting the value up so you can refinance and pay off that initial loan, sometimes for me, a private money, high interest loan. So this is why you gotta subscribe to my channel, because I do this stuff every single day, my friends, all the time. Okay, this is like what I do. It's fun. I love it. It's super cool. And I've, become a decamillionaire because of it a couple times over. You can do real estate. A lot of you think you can't. The key is to start. But when you're doing this, when you're doing real estate, you want to eventually get your cash back. When I first started, Mally Chester, good friend and a mentor to me about my age, got me first started in real estate investing, said to me, don't put your money into real estate unless you can figure out a way to get it out. You don't want your money to sit in there forever. So in this case, I said, maybe in 2 or 3 years, you get the rents up, you refinance, you pull out your cash, and now you're into this building. How much? If you paid $80,000, maybe you're into it $30,000, maybe you're into it $60,000. So now you've got your money back to go get another piece of real estate. And if you use your money to go get another piece of real estate, the interest on this is tax deductible. Always talk to your tax attorney, always talk to your accountant. Remember, this is informational purposes, this is my experience, but you have to use people to help you with your accounting and to understand these things when you do your taxes and when you're thinking about investments. Use professionals and get their advice because they will help you. That includes realtors and brokers and bankers. All these people help you make money. I got a call just this morning, an email actually, of another deal, house for like a couple $100,000, a small deal, which is what? Which is not even on the market. Take it as is, this and that. Okay, I'll evaluate it tonight and I'll probably buy it tomorrow. Okay, this is the thing. You want to use cap rates. You also want to use gross income. Just compare those quickly. And the last thing we'll talk about real quickly is that besides gross income and cap rate, there's replacement value. And replacement value means how much would it cost to replace it? And a lot of these deals, the reason I buy them is because you can't replace them for what I'm buying them for. Okay? Construction today is astronomically expensive. So if you could buy units at a low price per door or below the cost of replacement, how are you going wrong? If you look at some of these properties after they've been renovated and you compare them to a new property, they don't look much different. So we're going to get more into that in the next video, which just follow along with me because as you can see, like the more you watch and the more you learn, the better you're going to be when you go on LoopNet or some of these other sites to evaluate the value of the property. And that's so important in your wealth building. Money is often made on the purchase, okay? But it can also be made on the management and running the property and of course on the sale. So all are important, okay? 3 phases, buying it, managing it, selling it. You can make money on all of them and I have strategies for all of those, but just stay with me and join me on the next video.